It is always worth reminding you all that one of the very first things Joe Biden ever said, when he entered the presidency, was America is back. Because of all the stuff that the Trump administration has done in like its first couple of months, which honestly seems like an absolute eternity, even though they've already only been in power for like 3 months. I know. It feels like an eternity. We have really forgotten a lot of the stuff that went on in the first administration. And as we've always said, that administration, there were adults in the room. There were people able to, jangle the keys in front of Trump and distract him long enough to curb his more damaging, impulses. This time, however, that is not the case. There are no adults in the room. And we are seeing just full, unbridled Trump. Now, whether that will continue, not that, of course, I think is another different, interesting question. However, what we saw, and then especially, of course, Joe Biden, he spent like the first couple of months of his presidency going on like an apology tour, like saying, "Hey, don't worry, guys, America's back. We're back in the world. Normalcy has been restored." And he did restore that. And I remember a lot of when we were coming up to the previous elections and just after Labour had won, and I said, look, Starmer's going to do all this. You've seen them going on a big charm offensive over in Europe, and I'm being told, no, that's not going to work. Seems to have worked, and proved me right on that multiple times. You notice those people have gone awfully quiet now whenever I bring that up, but there you go. But yeah, this damage that is being done by this Trump administration is insane. Absolutely insane. To the point now where we are seeing the EU issue staff traveling to America with burner phones and laptops because they are so concerned now about America spying on commission staff. So they are now being treated the same way if like a member of the EU staff goes to Russia or goes to China. That is insane. And bear in mind, if the EU is doing this, then we are probably doing the same as well. I would also definitely suspect other European countries are also doing this as well. It is also worth pointing out the EU has come out and denied this, but it wouldn't be the first time that the EU has come out, denied a story, and then later confirmed it to be true. So who knows in this? But it has been, of course, reported by the Financial Times on this. So before we go into the story, please remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. Down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the One of Nation link called Patreon, Buy Me Coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, there's the Pony Club down below as well. So let's crack on then into this. So, EU gives staff burner phones and laptops for US visit. The European Commission is now giving staffers visiting the US on official business burner phones and laptops to avoid espionage attempts, according now to the Financial Times. The use now of clean and lockdown hardware is now common practice for anyone visiting China and Russia, and other states where aggressive electronic surveillance is expected. But apparently now the European Union has now added the US to that list. The transatlantic alliance is over, an EU official told the newspaper, which reported to the Commission is now using or issuing burner phones and basic laptops to some US-bound staff to avoid the risk of espionage, a measure now traditionally reserved for trips to China. Next week, officials from the EU, Washington, are due to meet for the World Banking Group and International Monetary Fund, and the sources for the FT told the EC had changed its guidance to ensure that visitors to America take very serious precautions against now cyber espionage. They are worried about the US getting into the Commission systems, one said. The relationship between the US and the European and Europe has, of course, chilled very severely in the past couple of months since Trump now threatened to invade Greenland, slapped tariff onto Euro imports, and, of course, backed a Sieg-Heiling Elon Musk, and then sent President JD Vance to then lecture the continent on free speech, humiliated Ukraine's president, and made other smart foreign policy moves. God, it's just a litany, just like that, just one sentence, just a litany of stuff. And that's only 3 months worth of stuff. I who knows where we're going to be by the end of the year, but it is just insane the amount of stuff that has happened just in 3 months for the Europe to then go, yeah, we need to be like really careful now because we know that they might try and spy on our like people if they go over there on like official visits. Yeah. And then it gets even more insane because remember, if the EU is doing this, other European countries are also going to be doing stuff like this as well. So Germany, Denmark, Finland, the Netherlands, and Ireland have now all altered their travel advice for citizens visiting the land of the free, mainly urging travelers to follow all requirements as strictly as possible or simply just consider not going. After a bunch of visitors from the EU and the UK were detained for visa on immigration infractions, transgender travelers are also advised that may be now barred from entry. France's Minister for Higher Education and Research, Philippe Bastis, now lodged, of course, an official complaint last month after one French boffin was now reportedly barred from entering the country for a conference after the Border Patrol examined her phone and found that it was said to be, quote, extremely anti-Trump comments. Although the US says it was because the officers, quote, found confidential American information in the scientist's possession. Yeah. I'm totally going to be sure that they wouldn't have arrested that person, and got them up on espionage charges if they had found that, right? Right? Surely not. But this is insane that this is now the level we are at. Like, absolutely insane. This is doing so much damage to like international relations, and you're only like 3 months in. Like 3 months in. And remember, the last Trump administration, this was like constantly talked about. Hey, you can't be, annoying our allies. You can't be like constantly doing this stuff. And because there were adults in the room, they were able to like curb all those like bad impulses that he would go through and do. Not this time. Not this time. We're 3 months in and we've got the EU going, yeah, if you are going over there onto America, on official business, might want to take, burn a phone, burn a laptop, and, maybe have it scrubbed once you come back, just in case. Just unbelievable. Unbelievable that this is happening. Generally unbelievable. But anyway, back to this. So, taking a burning device, to be honest, sounds, of course, like standard practice for people in very sensitive lines of work. Although this is now being interpreted now as an indication of just quite how badly the relations now have slipped between between Europe and the US. While, of course, a certain amount of spying on one's allies is expected, former German Chancellor Angela Merkel was most peeved when it turned out her phone was being bugged by the NSA. A recommendation to take now fresh devices is, of course, something very new. Ultimately, of course, spy. And when it comes to spying on the world, there is in no doubts America's abilities regards now for who's in charge. Washington, of course, is not Beijing or Moscow, but it is now advisory that a phone is used for extra legal methods to prevent now its further interests, said Luc van der Meer, the director of the Brussels Institute for Geopolitics. He told the FT. The democratic administrations, of course, use the very same tactics. It is an acceptance of reality by the Commission. The European Commission spokesperson, in an email, did not, of course, deny the equipment was being handed out to staff as reported, but while the spinner claimed the Commission had not used official guidance to use burner phones and laptops, they did admit it had, of course, tweaked its recommendations, saying, "We've recently updated several country-specific travel recommendations and fact sheets for officials. They reflect, of course, the latest changes in the way the Commission communicates with the general increase in threats globally regarding cybersecurity. Finally, we indeed now to recommend linking the EU visa to the EU's laissez passer for now senior officials in order to now underline the official nature of the visits and to facilitate the visa process in embassies prior to departure. Again, these updated recommendations were included in many other countries' fact sheets to the attention now of traveling senior officials." So, yeah, very interesting. Yeah, very interesting indeed. But yeah, the damage being done here is unbelievable. Unbelievable when it comes to like a foreign policy relation stuff. It's just like how many countries by like the end of like in 4 years time are going to be like America's allies. I think that list is going to be incredibly short. And bear in mind, we are in a situation right now where the UK is, put it this way, the UK US transatlantic alliance has been a cornerstone for the UK foreign policy for, well, since the end of the Second World War. Now they are like literally hanging on to that by like their fingertips as like the reality just sets in all of this. But hey, who knows? Who knows? Who knows whether we will still to be continue, be like as an ally as we once were, like, you know, just a year ago at this point. But yeah, it's wild. Honestly, wild that we are here, but unbelievable. But anyway, as always, let me know what you think down below. And also, like I say, as you journey on, do remember to click the like and, of course, the share button as well. So, as always, we'll see you all next time.